To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.
So my dear children, like I said in the previous chapter also, we'll be mainly focusing about within this chapter about the evolution of horse and the importance of evolution for the biodiversity. So from those two topics, first of all, we are going to discuss about the evolution of horse. Okay, so here it is given. Coming to conclusions about evolution of organisms using proof from fossils leads to a number of problems, as all the stages of the evolution of an organism is not preserved in fossil forms. So like I said in the earlier chapter, my dear children, studying about the fossils and giving an idea about the evolution, studying only about the fossils and giving an idea about the evolution is not available for each and every organism in our planet. It's mainly because from one stage to another stage, fossil records may not be available, because we are studying about millions of years from one particular organism to another. So when you select a particular organism, the start may there, but the mid parts will be disappeared, right? It's mainly because the middle parts, in order to, there should be start and the end, no? So end means the modern organism. Start is the ancestor. Then from that, there are certain development stages in this organism. So from one stage to another stage, in a first stage, or in the middle stages, right? When you take two stages, in a one particular stage there can be fossil records, but in the other there won't be, because we are studying about millions of years, right? We are studying millions of years from one stage to another. So from one stage to another, we won't be able to observe fossil records from one by one. So therefore, when you take organisms, for almost all the organisms, we won't be able to study about the fossil records in detail, because there might be lack of fossil records from one stage to another. Okay, right. So therefore, fossil evidences are like a storybook with torn pages, right? So like I said, my dear children, if you take the process of evolution of a certain organism as a storybook or else just a book, then we don't know, right? We know the start, we don't know the middle pages. We don't know what has happened in the story of the middle pages, but we have the end. So the story may turn to different story can tell to another person in different aspects according to the person who is going to introduce it, right? So these aspects or these areas or these stories, my dear children, may get vary from the initial one, the real one. Okay, it's going to vary from the initial or the real one. But however, my dear children, we have to provide at least some kind of an idea, no? So it's better to give a certain idea rather than keeping it away. Okay, so evolution process of an organism is like a torn out storybook. You have only several pages. From that pages, you have to make up the story, right? We have the end and we have the start. We have the end, we have the start. The middle area, we don't know what has happened. Most of the organisms have the same procedure. right? I mean, like most of the organisms have the same scenario, because fossil records are not available for each and every stage of the organism. So therefore, middle pages are not there, or the middle stages are not there. So the story may change from one person to another according to the aspect. Okay, so evolution is not been 100% proved theory. I mean, like it's like a storybook with the torn pages. So in the mid part, we don't know what has happened. Even the scientists, they don't have a clue. By looking at certain things, they provide certain ideas, theories, my dear children. So they will change in the near future. We don't know whether those things are going to retain in the same or going to change. However, by looking at the information that they have up to now, they're going to represent a certain kind of a idea or else a theory. Those are the ones we are been studying right now. Okay, so always remember, this evolutionary process of a certain organism, it's not been 100% proved. Okay, we can't say that thing, that it is 100% actually really true. It may change, right? Because there is lack of evidence from the fossil records. Right, evolutionary history of horses have been completely studied and revealed clearly, as there have been enough fossil records to study the complete evolutionary history of horse. Now I told you, my dear children, now why are we studying about the evolution of horse? What is the specialty of horse? Specialty is that, my dear children, there are enough fossil records to show the evolution process of horse. That's the reason. For humans, are there any enough fossil records to show the evolution process? For humans, any idea? For humans also the same thing, my dear children, right? Like a torn storybook, torn out storybook. We don't know. I mean, like fossil records are not 100% complete. Okay, so for the humans also the same thing. But by studying several structures and several other fossils, right, up to a certain level, we can give a certain idea. I mean, like we can build up a certain structure, we can build up a certain hierarchy. But however, that may change in the near future. We don't know whether it is true or false, right? There is no certain evidence to prove that 100% it is accurate, right? I'm talking about the accuracy, my dear children. This is not about the truthfulness or the falsehood. I'm just talking about the accuracy of those things. Accuracy and truthfulness is two different things. Accuracy means it's like for certain we know. Truth or false, you know what's the meaning of that thing, right? If I'm going to tell you that humans have evolved from birds, okay, then it is false. That is a false thing, no? Because humans have evolved initially from apes, okay, from apes. So that is the truthfulness and the falsehood. Accuracy means somewhat different than that. Humans have evolved from monkeys. That is not that much false. Up to a certain level it is correct, but it is not accurate. Okay, so the accuracy and the falsehood, two different things. Here I'm talking about the accuracy. Okay, I'm talking about the accuracy. Now there is a certain way of evolution which is being presented to the world. So it is being accepted by the modern society. But however, there are gaps, right? There are gaps. So it is not 100% accurate. However, it is true. Okay? It is not accurate, but however, it is true. That's the case in here. So for all the organisms, my dear children, for almost all the organisms, the same scenario can be observed, but there are several special organisms. Fossil records, there are enough fossil records to show the evolutionary process. Such an organism is the horse. So when you take the horse, my dear children, the evolution process of horse can be schematically represented as a hierarchy by using the fossil records and by developing their structures according to those fossils. Okay, so evolutionary history of horses have been completely studied because as there are enough fossil records. Okay, so it is believed that the ancestor of modern horse had lived in North America 54 million years ago. So about 54 million years ago, the ancestor of horse lived in North America, my dear children. Ancestor. So that was the primitive creature of the horse, right? The primitive creature of the horse was is the one which is referred as the ancestor. Okay, so the ancestor of horse lived 54 millions of years back in the North America. Then further it has been revealed this animal was about 40 centimeters in height and was similar to a dog in the body shape. It could run. It had small legs with only 3 toes in the front legs. The significant feature about this animal is that fingers in front legs were located on vertical position. Right. It is believed that the ancestor of modern horse had lived in North America 54 million years ago. And the specialty is that further it has been revealed this animal was about, the height of this animal was about 40 centimeters, my dear children. Right? Was about how much? It was about 40 centimeters. The height was about 40 centimeters. 40 centimeters, like the height is very smaller, right? Now the modern horse is even more, has a more height than 1.5 meters, right? Nearly about 2 meters. Nearly about 2 meters. But however, the ancestor, right, the prehistoric creature of the horse, right, it had only a 40 centimeter height. So from 40 centimeters, gradual development of the horse has occurred within the evolution, during the evolution, my dear children, and now the horse is about 2 meters in height. Okay, 2 meters. So, and it was similar to a dog in the body shape. So the next thing is it had a shape similar to a dog. It could run. So it has an ability to run. It had small legs with only 3 toes in the front legs. So had small legs with 3 toes. So my dear children, it had small legs, only 3 toes in the front legs. So nowadays, if you take the horse, the leg of the horse is like this, right? It's like this, right? Right? It's like this. The toes are like this. So it has only 2 toes-like structures within the front and the back legs. Okay. So, but in the earlier ancestor, right? But the earlier ancestor, my dear children, it had small legs with 3 toes, right? 3 toes. Then the significant feature about this animal is that the fingers in front legs were located on vertical position. Now the specialty is that fingers in the front leg. Significant feature is that fingers in the front legs were located on vertical position, right? So the fingers were located on the vertical position. That was the significant feature that can be observed within the structure of this body of the ancestor. Okay, so after passing millions of years, right, several millions of years, after passing several millions of years, my dear children, several changes occurred within the body of the organism, body of this particular horse. Then it has developed to the modern horse that we observe in day-to-day life right now. Okay, so the ancestor had these features: about 40 centimeter in height, and the body was similar to a dog in the shape, so it could run, and it had small legs with only 3 toes. And significant feature is that the fingers in the front legs were located on a vertical position, right? So fingers in front legs were located on a vertical position. That was the significant feature which is observed, right? So this is the answer. This is about the ancestor of the horse, my dear children, right? Now, a lot of changes in this animal took place gradually during its evolutionary process. Some gradual changes took place in locomotion and feeding system. So, as you can see here, this is the ancestor that we were talking about, which was lived 54 million years back, and this is the ancestor. Then this ancestor was developed into this kind of a organism, then like this, then this, and finally the modern horse was developed. Okay, so as you can see here, different structural changes and different feeding mechanisms, right, different feeding mechanisms could be observed, and their locomotive structures has got changed, and by that way the modern horse has been developed. So here lot of changes occurred within the body structure, and also with the other features. And from these structure, or from these structural changes, my dear children, gradually from the evolution process, this ancestor became the modern horse. Okay, so there are enough fossil records to show the structure or to show the evolutionary process of horse. Okay, so these are the changes that we can observe within the evolutionary process of the horse. Okay, right then. So my dear children, we discussed about the evolutionary process of the horse. Now we are going to focus about the importance of evolution in biodiversity. Okay, the importance of evolution in biodiversity. This is the one that we are going to discuss right now. Okay, so here it is given, there is competition among animals for the limited resources in the environment. The creatures who succeed will be naturally selected and be established in the environment. These selected organisms become pioneers in the environment, and their population increases. These creatures have created a large biodiversity in the natural environment. In the process of evolution, there may also be novel species that have evolved from former species. This is known as speciation. Through this, the biodiversity has been increased further. Let's focus about the first point once again. There is competition among animals for the limited resources in the environment. Let's once again go back to the primitive earth. In that time, I told you that mainly the main life forms that evolved was aquatic life forms. So I told you that competition is going to increase from time to time. When increasing the number of creatures, when increasing the number of organisms within the aquatic environment, the competition is going to increase, my dear children. In that case, animals should have to go for different habitats. That's why the fishes evolved into amphibians. Amphibians landed on the terrestrial environments. They invaded the terrestrial environments, right? It's mainly because of the competition that occurred within the aquatic environments. If the competition was not there, then amphibians will not go for the land. If so, what will happen? The life of the terrestrial environment will not be evolved, my dear children. Okay, so this for the evolutionary process, right? For the evolutionary process, for the different types of, for the development of different types of organisms, evolution is very important, right? For evolution is very important in creating different forms of organisms, because fishes have been developed into amphibians. Then from amphibians, well developed or well adapted terrestrial animals like reptiles were born. Then after that, right, after that, what has happened? Reptiles further developed and evolved into birds, right? And finally mammals, finally into mammals. Okay, so my dear children, it helps, the evolutionary process, it helps to reduce the competition in our biosphere, because it helps to create different types of varieties of organisms. So during the creation of varieties of organisms, my dear children, the organisms will be able to feed on different types of food. They will be able to survive on different environments, different habitats. That means the biodiversity is getting conserved. So evolution is very important to conserve the biodiversity and to develop new types of organisms who are well adapted to the environment and who can succeed in a particular environment, right? So here it is given, there is competition among animals for the limited resources in the environment. The creatures who succeed will be naturally selected and be established in the environment. So for the there is a certain competition, my dear children. For each and everything there is a competition, right? When you take a dog, right, a cat, not a cat or a dog that we are going to we have as our pets in our home. Okay, let's imagine a dog or else a cat who is wandering here and there in the streets. If it is going to reproduce, definitely it will reproduce several kittens or several puppies, like 7 or 8. But however, there is only 2 or 3 puppies or kittens will be fit enough to live. Others will die, right? Others will definitely die, right? Like 5 of them will die. Only 2 or 3 will be able to survive. It's mainly because of the environmental conditions and the competition for food and other favorable facts, and sometimes because of the predation, right? So this thing is going to happen for each and every type of organism who is living within our biosphere, right? So from a certain number of organisms, from a certain group of organisms, certain number will die and very less number will survive. So this surviving number are referred as the selected number or the selected creatures. Okay, they are the ones who have succeeded in adapting to the environment and conquering the environment. So these organisms will be naturally selected ones, apart from the predation, sometimes from diseases, and sometimes from other sometimes from competition, right? And from all of these factors, there are going to be several organisms who is going to survive. So these survived organisms are the selected ones, naturally selected ones. So they will be adapted for the environment, for the particular environment very well, and they can go on to live on their life. So the next thing is that these selected organisms become pioneers in the environment and their population increases. So what will happen? These selected ones, okay, what will happen? They will be the pioneers in the environment. That means in the particular environment, they are the ones who are they are the ones who have been adapted for the particular environment very well, and by that way they will be the pioneers and they will develop their species through the reproduction. Like the amphibians, right? The amphibians, earlier they lived only within water, then they invaded the land, then they have adapted to live on land itself without going into water. Such amphibians are the ones who are referred as the reptiles. Then reptiles are the ones which got further evolved in creating other forms of life. So here it is given, these creatures have created a large biodiversity in the natural environment. So true, right? So these creatures are the ones who are creating a large variety of biodiversity in the natural environment. Amphibian came to the terrestrial environment and they are the ones who created all the other vertebrates who is going to live on the environment, in our environment. So they are the pioneers, right? They are the pioneers. They are the earliest ancestors, okay? These organisms who first came to the land, right? They are the ancestors of all the organisms, all the animals who are living in our terrestrial environments, okay? Then in the process of evolution, there may also be novel species that have evolved from former species. This is known as speciation. Through this, the biodiversity has been increased further. So the process of evolution may also be novel species that have evolved from former species. Now, there can be novel species, right? During the evolution, novel species can be developed, okay? However, these species are created from previous species, okay? So this will increase biodiversity in our nature or in our biosphere even more, okay? In the earlier cases also, it is very helpful to increase the biodiversity. In this case also, sometimes, right, new species are going to born from previous species. So it will also increase the biodiversity even further. So these are the importance of evolution for the biodiversity, my dear children. It will reduce the competition, it will increase the biodiversity, it will produce well adapted organisms for the environment, new pioneers will be developed for a particular environment, right? And the biodiversity is getting further developed because of the novel species which are getting evolved from previous species. So these are the important facts, right? Important things in evolution for the process of biodiversity, or for the development of biodiversity in our planet Earth. So evolution plays, or it is going to play a huge part in creating a vast biodiversity within our planet Earth by developing different kinds of organisms, right? So mainly the biodiversity has occurred within our earth because of the evolution process, my dear children. Almost all the organisms who is living on the planet earth, they started from a single cell. Okay, and the single celled organism branched into several other types of organisms in creating the biodiversity, the variety of organisms within our earth. So this is the importance of evolution, right, for the process of biodiversity. Actually, whole biodiversity thing is created because of the evolution. Right then. So my dear children, finally you are given with some extra knowledge thing. Here it is given. Charles Darwin is considered as the father of evolution. He put forward the natural selection theory, which is a scientifically accepted theory about the evolution. Right. So Charles Darwin, right, he was the person who introduced the evolution process. Okay, the theory of evolution introduced by the Charles Darwin. So therefore this person is referred as the father of evolution, right? Father of modern evolution. So he was the first person to introduce this natural selection theory. Natural selection theory was first forwarded by Charles Darwin. Therefore, he is referred as the father of evolution. Okay. So my dear children, once again you are given with the assignment. Okay. So the previous assignment was to write down a certain article. Now let's see the next assignment. Prepare a booklet by collecting information about evidence for evolution of the mankind were found in Sri Lanka. Use the evidence found from Batadomba cave in Kuruvita, Pahiyangala cave in Bulat Sinhala, Ibbankotuwa, Ravana Falls, Pomparippu, and include the facts about Balanguda human also. So these are several areas where in Sri Lanka, right? These areas are found in Sri Lanka, my dear children. So in Sri Lanka also there are certain areas which we can find different types of ancient cravings, drawings and so on related to very ancient people who lived. Actually, these are the drawings and framings and other structures of different types of ancestors who lived in the earlier period of time, like in the prehistoric era, right? So within these areas you can collect different information regarding the humans and regarding the beings who lived in that particular time period. So you are given with an assignment to find out the information about the ancient beings and organisms and the types of humans like Balanguda human, right, who lived during that certain time period or during that earlier era, and you have to find out the different kinds of information regarding these places and regarding the organisms and the humans that were lived during that time period. Then you have to prepare a booklet regarding those by including those information. Okay, so it's important to find out these things, my dear children, because in Sri Lanka also we can observe, right, these historical places which we can find several evidences to prove the evolutionary process. Okay, right then. So with that part, I hope that you will do this assignment. There are now 2 assignments, so you need to follow up with these things. You need to do these assignments in order to renew your knowledge. Okay, right. So with that one, my dear children, we have came to the end of our lesson. So now let's quick look at the summary and we'll discuss several questions related to the evolutionary process but first of all from your textbook. Okay, before that we'll focus about the summary that we have learned during our lesson part. So first of all, we studied about the origin of Earth. Okay, so origin of Earth took place about 4.5 billion years ago, and origin of life took place 3.5 billion years ago. So 4.5 billion years ago, Earth was originated from the Big Bang. Then after that, right, 3.5 billion years ago, life on the earth was originated, right? Origination of life is a result of a process of biochemical reactions, is the theory that is accepted today. So we discussed several theories related to the creation of life or for the origination of life. We discussed actually 4 theories. From those 4 theories, my dear children, the theory which is accepted by the modern people or modern scientists is the theory of biochemical evolution. Theory of biochemical evolution. So we discussed that in the biochemical evolution, there was a primordial soup which was created by the reaction between different gases on the earth, right? So those gases help to create a primordial soup, and from the primordial soup the first and foremost bacterial cell originated, and from that cell life has been thrived on the earth. That's how we studied about the biochemical evolution. So that's the theory which is been accepted in modern world, my dear children, right? So that is the origination of life. So we assume that the life has been originated, or life originated from the life originated on our earth as a result of a chemical reaction. That is why it is referred as biochemical evolution. Then the next one, life originated from a unicellular organism that lived in the sea and developed into multicellular organisms. So we discussed that the first and foremost cell was a bacterial cell, a unicellular cell, right? A unicellular organism. It was anaerobic and heterotrophic. So this particular cell was referred as the pre-cell. So pre-cell was a bacterial cell. So from this bacterial cell, multicellular organisms were developed gradually. Then after that, vertebrates were developed, and organisms, several other organisms also developed. Okay, so all the organisms living on the planet Earth was started from a single cell, from a single bacterial cell. Then gradual development of simple organism to modern complex organism is called evolution. The gradual development of simple organism to modern complex organism is called as, so this is the process which is called as the evolution. Development of a simpler organism to a complex organism is the process of evolution. Fossil records are the main detailed evidence of evolution. Fossil records are the main records that can provide or that can support for the evolutionary process. Okay, but however we discussed that for each and every organism, fossil records may not be available, as we are discussing about different stages of organism that has been lived over a certain time period. This time period is in millions of years. So therefore, for some stages, fossil records may not be available. So therefore, we discussed that for a certain particular type of organism, right, the process of evolution, it will be like a storybook with torn pages. Okay, right then. Animals that do not undergo evolution process are known as living fossils. Animals that do not undergo in evolution process are known as living fossils. So living fossils are the animals. Usually we discuss that each and every animal is going to show some kind of a structural change during the period of time. Okay, but however we discuss that there can be several types of organisms, right? There can be several types of organisms which do not show any significant change from their ancestors. So those organisms are the ones which are referred as living fossils. So these organisms are not being evolved. Okay, examples were coelacanth fish, lingula, lungfish, guinea otter, a plant fern, and cockroach, and also dragonflies, right? Then horse is an organism with complete fossil evidence about its evolution. Now my dear children, I told in the earlier case that we won't be able to find fossil records for each and every stage of an organism, right? But however, when you check the evolution process of horse, the evolution process of horse is been completely studied and it is been revealed to the world. It's mainly because the evolutionary process of horse can be studied very easily as there is enough fossil records. Okay, as there is enough fossil records, the evolutionary process of horse is been completely revealed. So we studied about the evolutionary process of the horse, right? And the main reason for the revealing of evolutionary process in horse is that the fossils of ancestors of the horse is available to study for the scientist. Okay, so it helped in giving out the evolutionary process of the horse. Then the next one, important evidences about evolution of the mankind were found in Sri Lanka. So in Sri Lanka also these information are available, like the areas that we discussed like in Bulat Sinhala, then in Kuruvita, and also in Balangoda area. Okay, so in these areas we can find out this prehistoric information and it will provide the evidences related to the evolutionary process. Okay, so these are the things that we have learned within the lesson part, my dear children. Okay, right then, so with that we have finished all the theoretical parts related to the lesson. Okay, now first of all we'll discuss several questions related to your textbook. After that we'll go for the extra exercises. So let's head on to see exercises in your textbook. So as usual you are given with several MCQ type questions. So here you have to select the correct or the most suitable answer for the given questions. Number 1, correct sentences about the origin of the earth. So it is asking about the origin of the earth. Okay, let's see. It is considered origin of the earth took place 4.5 billion years ago. It is correct, right? It is believed that before 4.5 billion years ago, the origin of the earth took place because of the Big Bang. It is absolutely correct. No any trouble in that, right? The first scientific theory about the origin of universe is nebular theory. Once again correct. The nebular theory stated that due to the action of gravity, dust particles and other smaller particles drift together and it helped to create planets and other stars. That's the nebular theory, right? So it is correct. That was the first and foremost theory introduced to explain the origin of Earth. Big Bang theory is considered as the modern theory on origin of Earth. Once again correct. Once again correct. Big Bang theory is the modern accepted theory to show or to explain the origin of Earth and the universe. So my dear children, all of these things are correct. All of these things are correct. So A, B, C, all are correct, right? So you have to choose the correct sentences. So A, B, C, all are correct. Next one. The false statement about the early earth. So you have to select the false statement. As there was oxygen in atmosphere, there was life on the earth. Totally incorrect. Earlier, there was no oxygen, right? There was no oxygen in the early earth. We discussed that in the primitive earth. There was toxic gases like methane, hydrogen sulfide, and other types of toxic gases. Oxygen were not there, right? Oxygen was not there mainly because in order to supply oxygen to the atmosphere, there should be, right? There should be photosynthetic organisms. As there was no photosynthetic organisms, oxygen was not there. Gases such as carbon dioxide and methane were formed as a result of the reactions between elements. Gases such as carbon dioxide and methane were formed as a result of the reactions between the elements. We'll keep that thing, we'll go for the others. Heavy rain fell down on the earth for many years. Heavy rain fell down to the earth for many years. The rainwater, rich with minerals, was collected to form oceans. So, my dear children, when you check these three information, gases such as carbon dioxide and methane were formed as a result of the reactions between elements. Absolutely correct. When I was discussing about this thing, I told you that. It is absolutely correct. Heavy rain fell down on the earth for many years. That is also absolutely correct because it helped in creating oceans, right? Oceans were created because of the rain that was occurred for many years. So it is also correct. Rainwater rich with minerals was collected to form oceans. Once again, it is correct. So you have to find out the false statement about the early earth. So we have found out the false statement, my dear children. That is the first one. It is saying that early earth had oxygen, so there was life. It is totally incorrect, right? So that should be our answer. Right then. Today's accepted theory and origin of life on earth is theory of special creation. Incorrect. In theory of special creation, we assume that a supernatural power created the earth. So it is incorrect as there is no information, right? There is no evidence to prove it. We have neglected that theory. So it is incorrect. Spontaneous generation theory. Once again, it is incorrect. The Louis Pasteur, right? Louis Pasteur, who was a great scientist in 1862. He was given that, or he was proved that. He proved that this is the spontaneous generation theory is incorrect. Okay, so it is also incorrect. Cosmozoic theory, once again incorrect as there is no evidence to prove such an incident. So the correct answer would be biochemical evolution. Biochemical evolution is the best and somewhat accurate theory that would describe the creation of life in our earth. The true statement on the origin of life is true statement on the origin of life. First living organism on earth was a unicellular algae. Correct. It is saying that it was a unicellular algae. First living organism on earth was a unicellular algae. That is why we need to check these MCQ questions very well, my dear children. It is mentioning that it is a unicellular algae. But however, we know that it is not a unicellular algae. It was a unicellular bacteria. So this is incorrect. First living organism was not a unicellular algae. It was a unicellular bacteria. Multicellular organisms were originated from the evolution of unicellular organisms. That is correct, right? That is correct. Multicellular organisms were originated from the evolution of unicellular organisms. It is correct. No problem in it. Because multicellular organisms were created because of the creation of unicellular organisms, as we discussed in the earlier case also. Unicellular organisms like bacteria were the first organisms to evolve on the earth. Okay, from those organisms, multicellular organisms were developed. So it is correct. Origin of modern human took place 4.5 billion years ago. Incorrect. It is incorrect. The final one is also incorrect. The origin of modern human took place 4.5 billion years ago. That is totally incorrect. 4.5 billion years ago, the origination of Earth occurred. Not the origination of life or the origination of Earth. The Earth was created like 4.5 billions of years ago. Okay. So as you can see here, the question tells to select the true statements. But however, the true statement is only B. There is no such reference in here. So it's better to change our question. Actually, this is a mistake in your textbook, my dear children. Let's correct it as false. Right, false. False statement. So there are two false statements, A and C. So the correct one would be over here, A and C, right? A is incorrect and C is incorrect. So false statements on the origin of life is A and C. So in your textbook also, my dear children, there is a mistake. Okay, right. State whether the given statements are true or false. The first originated organism on primordial soup was a unicellular bacteria. Correct. Absolutely correct, right? Unicellular bacteria was the first and foremost organism who was to emerge from the primordial soup. So it is correct, no problem in it. It is correct. Next one. Gradual development of complex organisms from modern simple organisms is known as evolution. The gradual development of complex organism from a modern simple organism. So from a modern simple organism developing into a complex organism is called evolution. Correct, right? Correct. Correct, no problem. Next one. To come to a conclusion on biological evolution, only fossil evidence is sufficient. Only fossil evidence is sufficient. Incorrect. Right? As because there is only thing, we can't take that as an answer. Only fossil evidence is not sufficient to provide an information or to provide evidences to support the evolution process. We have to consider other different facts as well. Right? So by depending on all of those areas, we are going to provide the evidence needed for the process of evolution. So by looking at only fossil evidences, we won't be able to provide evidence for the evolutionary process. And my dear children, we discussed that sometimes fossil records are not available. Right? Fossil records are not available. So in that case, what will happen? We won't be able to provide the process of evolution for a particular organism. So by looking at only the evidences given out by the fossil records, we won't be able to provide a strong evidence for the process of evolution. So this one should be incorrect. This is incorrect as it is mentioned in only. Right? But we can give certain idea, we can give certain evidence, right? Up to a certain extent by using the fossil records. However, we won't be able to 100% prove that thing. Okay. Next one. Lingula is a living fossil found in Sri Lanka. It is correct, right? So we discussed about the living fossil. Under that, Lingula was an organism who lived and who is observed within the Tamlangamua Bay in Trincomalee region. So we discussed that thing. So my dear children, it is totally correct, no problem in it. So it is correct. Next one. The main reason for biodiversity is the process of evolution. Once again, correct. We discussed that under the final part of the lesson, my dear children. The whole process of biodiversity mainly occurred because of the evolutionary process. Otherwise, all the organisms who are living on the earth will be unicellular bacteria, right? Because all the organisms evolved from a unicellular bacteria, no? So if the evolutionary process haven't occurred like in the way that we have discussed, then all the organisms who are living in our earth would be a unicellular bacterial species. However, due to evolution, or thanks to evolution, the biodiversity can be observed, the vast biodiversity can be observed within our planet Earth. So it is correct, my dear children, right? So the main reason for the biodiversity is the process of evolution. It is totally correct. So once again, the first originated organism on primordial soup was a unicellular bacteria. Absolutely correct, no problem in it. Gradual development of complex organism from modern simple organism is known as evolution. It is also correct, right? Next one. To come to a conclusion on biological evolution, only fossil evidence is sufficient. Incorrect. We won't be able to provide the information, strong information or strong evidence, right? Only by looking at fossil evidences. Okay, so we won't be able to provide a strong evidence on biological evolution by only looking at fossil records. Okay, so it is incorrect. Lingula is a living fossil found in Sri Lanka. That is correct. We discussed that Lingula is an organism who is found in Tambalanga Bay near the Trincomalee area. Then the main reason for the biodiversity is the process of evolution. Once again, it is correct because the vast diversity in our planet Earth, the vast biodiversity in our planet Earth is mainly because of the evolution occurred from the single cell organisms. Okay, right, then we'll move on to the next question. Right, now here you need to write down the correct answers, my dear children. Number 3. Write 2 examples for living fossils. 2 examples for living fossils. Number 1, Lingula. Right, Lingula, who is an organism living in Tambalangamu area, right, near the Trincomalee. Right, then next one, dragonfly. Dragonfly, right, dragonfly. Then number 3, cockroach. Cockroach, right? So they are other than, so it's mentioning only to write down 2, but I have mentioned 3, my dear children, right? So other than that, coelacanth fish, lungfish are also several examples for living fossils. Next one, simply describe the contribution of fossils to study the evolutionary process. So when studying the evolutionary process, right, my dear children, now when observing, right, when observing the fossils, we can study about the evolutionary process, because by looking at the fossils we can get idea about the ancestors who lived in the earlier time, and from the ancestors, right, we can find out different other structures or different other special features occurred in modern organisms. Okay, so by looking at the fossils or by studying about the fossils, we can get idea about the ancestors who lived during the prehistoric era or or in historical times, right? So that is the main contribution given out by fossils. So you can write the answer. It helps to study about ancestors who lived in earlier times. Right, so it helps to study about ancient ancestors who lived in earlier times, right? In early earth. We'll mention as earlier, not early earth. Early earth. So by studying relevant information from those ancestors, we can get a certain idea about the evolutionary process, right? Okay, so it helps to study about ancient ancestors who lived in early earth. Write 5 places in Sri Lanka that give evidence on evolution of the mankind. 5 places in Sri Lanka that give evidence on evolution of the mankind. So you have to write down 5 places in Sri Lanka. So number 1, Batadombalena. Then Kuruvita. Then Pahiyangala. Then Pomparippu. Then Balangoda. Right, Balangoda. So these are the several areas that we can get information regarding the evolution of humans, right? Evolution of process of organisms, especially in Sri Lanka, my dear children. Okay, so Batadombalena, Kuruvita, Pahiyangala, Pomparippu and Balangoda. Okay, right. Right, a modification on feet of horse occurred during its evolution. We know that the ancestor of the horse contained, or it had very small feet. Okay, and it was about 40 centimeters in height. However, the modern horse, it has very long feet, my dear children. Due to having very long feet, it can run very fast. And the other thing is that horse is having very long feet, and therefore height is also like about 2 meters, right? The modern horse is evolved like up to that kind of a creature from the ancient ancestor. So the question is asking, write down the special feature that can be, or special change which occurred in the feet. So we can say that if you take the feet, my dear children, feet of the ancestor, right? If you take the feet of the ancestor is short, right? But however, modern horse has longer feet. Okay, so we can write the answer. Ancestor of the horse, right? Ancestor of the horse had small feet with less length right? But modern horse has long, stronger, larger feet. Right, so ancestor of the horse had small feet with less length, but modern horse has long, stronger and larger feet. Okay, so this is the main, I mean, like when you check the feet of the horse, this is the main change or main modification that occurred within the feet of the organism or feet of the horse, right? Okay, then next one, write 3 examples for organisms that are extinct from the earth but their fossils were found. Extinct from the earth but their fossils were found. So number 1 would be mammoth. We studied about the mammoth. So mammoth, and the second one, dinosaur. Mammoth, dinosaur. And so my dear children, these two are the ones which are given in your textbook. These are the organisms that are given in your textbook. However, there are different species of dragonflies, and there are other kinds of mosquitoes who have been extinct from our earth. But the thing is that these organisms are still available, even though those species have been extinct. Up to now, these organisms are visible, or these organisms are available in our environment. No, so I'm not going to write down those organisms. Even there is a special kind of a arthropods who lived in the prehistoric era. So even those arthropods were are also been extinct from the planet Earth. Okay, so however, there is a special kind of a bird which is referred as the dodo bird. Dodo bird is an extinct bird. Okay, it is a flightless bird, right, who lived in different, the dodo bird who lived in certain areas like jungles, I mean, like in forest mainly, right, in South America, Africa. These organisms or these dodo birds were much available. But however, nowadays in modern world, dodo birds are not available. They are extinct, mainly because of excessive hunting. That means these dodo birds have died or extinct in recent years. However, fossils of these organisms, fossils of these birds are still available. Okay, so the next one would be, I'll write dodo bird. So these are 3 examples for organisms that are extinct from the earth but their fossils are found. Okay, so we know that mammoth, we can find out the fossils, and for the dinosaur also, and for the dodo bird. Mammoth extinct because of the climatic changes, mainly because of the climatic changes. Dinosaurs extinct because of an asteroid collision. Then dodo birds eradicated or extinct from the earth because of excessive hunting. Okay, right then. So my dear children, with that question, we have finished all the lessons, all the lesson part and all the questions related to evolutionary process from your textbook. Okay, so within our next chapter, my dear children, we'll be discussing several extra questions related to the evolutionary process. So I hope to meet you with the next chapter to discuss about the extra questions.
To watch these important lessons, subscribe to DP Education's YouTube channel right now. Click on the bell icon to stay updated on the latest lessons. Sri Lanka's largest free online school, DP Education.